Welcome back here to live coverage of the Apex Gaming $5,000 Modern Open. I'm Tandy, joined by Bomat. Say hi, Bomat.
Hi, Bomat.
We're going into round number 2, and we got a nice one for you. Bomat, why don't you give us a rundown of the two players who are about to face off?
Looks like first up, we're gonna see Golgari Yawgmoth against an Esper control deck.
Okay, so these two decks, Esper Control, not really one we see too often. Normally, when we hear blue-white control, occasionally it's like splashing Renin 6 or something. Do you know what the black cards are for? Maybe
I will have
Sauron's
that.
Ransom or something?
The black cards in this deck, we see Orcish Bowmasters.
Okay, in the
actually.
control deck? That's cool.
Right.
All right. Maybe format defining.
Just
that
kind
one.
of, yeah, taking over the format, finding its way into all sorts of decks, including, apparently, blue-white control.
Yeah. On the other side of things, though, he's going to be playing against Dylan Ham. And Dylan Ham is playing Golgari Yawgmoth. And we've seen Ham play so many different decks here on the Apex series. And interesting to see him switching to Yawgmoth, even in the face of what I would consider to be maybe two bad matchups from heavy play at the Pro Tour recently. You know, I think Tron maybe not so good thanks to things like Oblivion Stone. But also, I think the Rhinos decks are a horrific matchup.
Right, yeah. Rhinos deck's all playing Fury, which is not what a Yawgmoth player is looking to see. But this archetype certainly has diehards and can definitely hold its own even against those decks.
All right. Well, the players are situated down in the feature match area, so without further ado, let's head on down there and see if they are ready to get started. On your left, you see Dylan Ham. What is the name of his opponent on the right? I think you have that on your phone.
Do
Apologies. Oh, Kyler Fields. We got it. My
Kyler
apologies.
Fields.
All right, so we're underway. Golgari Yawgmoth on your left, Dylan Ham on the play. Gonna fetch Overgrown Tomb. And we're gonna get right into it with some sort of one drop, maybe Yawgmoth, maybe the new Delighted Halfling. We saw a little bit of that last round.
And we see Kyler starting off with a Raugrin Triome in the Esper deck for Domain for that Leyline Binding.
Eric and Elite, thanks for the sub. Appreciate you. No more ads for you.
Delighted Halfling going to be a great start against any control deck that's trying to counter your spells. Exactly what Dylan's looking for.
All right.
And also, 2 toughness beats that Orcish Bowmasters we were talking about.
That's true, and that's one of the reasons why it's seeing so much play over things like Noble Hierarch, Ignoble Hierarch,
Right.
and other mana-producing creatures like Birds of Paradise. Kyler Field's going to be main phase fetching on turn number 2 with Marsh Flats. This control deck doesn't like to main phase stuff too often. I'm curious what he's going to go get. It looks like a Triome, and maybe we're going to go for a Leyline Binding, and Dylan Ham's already queued it up. Put that halfling off to the side.
Get into exile.
Leyline Binding. What a card.
This is not the fastest start for the control deck, of course, but the opponent's board is clear. We have all our colors. We got all our domain set up to take over the game against just a wall of roofs.
All right, Walrus from Dylan Ham, not that great against the control deck, but still a powerful mana producer. Not only allows you to generate mana on your own turn, but also your opponent's turn. 5 toughness means it dodges a lot of burn spells and can block well, as well as convoke and make mana for a Court of Calling.
And for 3 mana, we have Teferi Time Raveler. Great answer to this Wall of Roots.
Yeah, normally that card is extremely good against blue decks, but here bouncing a Wall of Roots is still quite fine. Now, if we get our spotter to make sure they use big dice, that'd be great. Well, Kyler Fields, it's hard to see what the dice says on there, just at 1. But we got a Wall of Roots replay. No land for Dylan Ham. Things are going poorly.
Yeah, that's the nightmare, really. You're stuck on 2 lands. You play your 2-mana Dork, and it gets bounced by Teferi. You just know you might be behind for a pretty long time. Let's see what Kyler has lined up for turn 4.
All right, looks like we got Godless Shrine. We're going to shock. Just going to put Kyler down to 17.
Kyler also running some sorcery speed hammers in Shoulder the Apocalypse and 1 Jace Mind Sculptor.
Nice. Jason Mind Sculptor. Oh, here it comes. The Papa himself. Going to bounce the Wall of Roots. All right. We need,
Kyler,
Mr. Director, can you please go tell them to use the big dice? I can't see how many ultis on there. Just a moment. We'll get that
You
fixed
know,
for you. Apologies.
Kyler smelled blood in the water when his opponent missed that land drop and then misses it again. The Jace is perfectly content to just keep returning that Wall of Roots to hand.
Thank you so much. All right.
There we go.
We got Jace, Mind Sculptor on 1 after bouncing Wall of Roots. We got Teferi Time Reveler ticking back up after bouncing the Wall of Roots the previous turn. And Dillingham cannot get a foothold in the game because of these bounce effects. And the powerful One Ring comes down for Kyler Fields, and that's going to start drawing a ton of cards. I can't imagine that Dillingham gets out of this one. We'll see if he can cobble together some sort of combo kill in the next 2 turns. But that's going to be extremely difficult with no board position.
We do have land number 3. Will it be enough? Could be too little too late.
Could be double Wall of Roots, and that actually leads to potential kill on the following turn thanks to Court of Calling and maybe a couple of those Undying creatures. We'll see if he's able to get it going.
And this is a lot of the power of Wall of Roots, is just being able to use it immediately. Can give you some great tempo in the early turns. Here it's going to let Dylan catch back up after some brutal setbacks from these Planeswalkers.
All right. Wall of Roots down to 4 toughness. We're going to play another Wall of Roots. No Bowmaster, though. I was kind of hoping there'd be a Bowmaster to knock off Jace the Mind Sculptor to stem the bleeding.
Definitely would be a great spot.
Okay. Kyler going to fetch. Down to 16. These Yawgmoth decks are always pretty scary to play against. They can win from some precarious spots. We'll see if Dillinham's able to do it in the next few turns. Otherwise, I feel like the One Ring, Jace, Teferi could be a little too much for him.
Makes me so happy to see Court of Calling really gaining a foothold back into the modern metagame. It was a lot of players' favorite card from Ravnica.
Original Ravnica.
Yep. Yeah. And finally, this Yawgmoth deck really showcases the power. Like you said, part of the reason you're so scared of the explosive potential is because they can just play their creatures and then cast an entire other spell to put their entire combo together for basically free.
Yeah. All right, back Kyler Fields' way. We're going to see what he wants to do with all these resources at his disposal. Flush, thanks to the ring. Thanks to Jace. We're going to draw 2. Put in a burden counter on there.
Hit that ring button.
Still a lot of life to work with. Doesn't have to be too afraid of that. Saw Lord Revealed picked up. It seems like a nice one for control decks. Hidden land drops early, finding your triumphs to turn on Leyline Binding, but also later in the game, just being a draw 3. Very powerful. Here comes Jace the Mind Sculptor. Greater than all, except for the one.
That's what they say.
That's what they said.
That's it. That's true.
Gonna put 2 back. Thumbing some lands, likely a little flooded. It's easy to get flooded when you draw 6 cards a turn.
But is it really flood?
Yeah. Not when you're playing Seismic Assault.
That's true.
Like we saw last night.
Come out at F&M last night, right?
Yeah. All right, here's Marsh Flats.
Fetch land, perfect follow-up after this brainstorm.
Old Cedric Field used to call that a perfect brainstorm.
Yeah. Kyler just flush with options here. Teferi's going to go up and stay in play.
Okay. What do we got here? Supreme Verdict would be kind of nice. Mana Constricting. There's a Prismatic Ending that's going to take care of the Wall of Roots on the left. He gone.
Kyler is playing Supreme Verdicts, 2 copies in the main deck, and this is a spot where you're absolutely terrified of that card from Dylan's side because this Teferi is sticking around. You're going to have to be watching out for instant speed Supreme Verdict for possibly the rest of the game.
Right. All right. Well, we are going to be casting this Court of Calling here. My guess is going to go get Bowmaster, but Mana Leak.
Mana Leak.
Blast from the Past. Kyler Fields is going to have the answer. And Dillingham, time is running out. Oh, thanks for the new subscriber, Professor Oakley. We appreciate you. Also, I've heard that we have had a little bit of technical difficulties with the audio. Hopefully, we get that fixed at some point. We apologize for the inconvenience, and we're thankful that you're still here hanging out with us and listening to us.
Mana Leak is a really interesting choice. Kyler actually not running any copies of traditional Counterspell, really valuing his mana base above all else, trying not to pack it full of islands.
Yeah, we see multiple Godless Shrines in play, right?
Right.
So that makes a lot of sense why you'd want to, play Godless Shrine tapped on 1 and then Mana Leak on turn 2. Mana Leak is very similar to Counterspell in most stages of the game. Counterspell just a little more iconic and, obviously a straight brick wall if you're able to play mono islands.
And we have a heater here in the mana base. Minamo, School at Water's Edge.
What does that one do? Why don't you tell me about it?
Well, it untaps the One Ring.
Does it? It says untap target legend. Isn't that only creatures?
Nope. Legendary permanent.
Ah, nice one, nice one. Manamo School Water's Edge out of the Kamigawa set says its students graduate the school and enter history. Well, it's been a long time since you were made, Manamo, and now you're making some history. Untapping this one ring, huh? Sheoldred, a perfect combination with the one ring and the Manamo.
That will be enough for Dylan.
That's a lot. That's a lot of damages, and you're dead. That's the game. Dylan's going to pack them up. 1-0 for the Esper control player. Now, as these players go to their sideboard, I'm going to let Matt give you the rundown on what he thinks they're going to sideboard. Let's go over the full sideboard so we know what we're working with, and then you give me your expert analysis on how they're going to approach the matchup.
Sure. So Kyler with this Esper control deck actually input the name as Esper Tap Out Control. The like I said, the mana leaks are the only counter spells in that main deck,
Okay.
and we see this continue through to the sideboard. We have some sorceries in Unmoored Ego and Break the Ice, 3 Leyline of Sanctity, 3 Drannith Magistrate, 1 Children's Edict, and 1 Supreme Verdict. So we're going to be interested to see whether these Unmoored Egos come in to try to rip the Yawgmoths out of the deck, but then definitely going to want an extra Supreme Verdict as well. And then moving on to Dylan's Yawgmoth sideboard, we have a card from Lord of the Rings that's been picking up heat in these Yawgmoth decks, an Elven Chorus, as well as 2 Damping Sphere.
Tell me about Elven Course real quick, and if we could get that one on the screen, I'd appreciate it, because I actually am unfamiliar with Elven Course. There's a lot of cards in Magic these days, and there's a lot of supplemental products, and so some of them kind of slip through the cracks for me, but this one, you know, if it's making its way into these Yawgmoth decks, then it has to be pretty good, right?
Right, and it's going to be great in this matchup, actually. This is a 4-mana enchantment that lets you look at the top card of your library, cast creature spells from the top of your library, and gives your creatures the ability to tap for 1 mana of any color.
Very cool. So it's kind of like Creature Future Sight, but also everything taps for mana, like even your Young Wolves?
Exactly. Your Young Wolves, but also, very importantly, your Strangleroot Geists.
They have haste.
They have haste. So you can keep sacrificing those Strangleroots, tapping them for mana, bringing them back, sacrificing them, tapping them for mana, etc. This is going to be a great tool for Dylan to try to grind his way through this control deck. And then finishing out the sideboard, we have 2 Elven Chorus, 2 Damping Sphere, 2 Veil of Summer, 2 Fatal Push, 2 Chalice of the Void, 2 Force of Vigor, 2 Endurance, and 1 Haywire Might. So definitely going to want those Veil of Summers against the removal spells and counter spells. And then I'll be interested to see the Haywire Might. Some great targets in the One Ring and Leyline binding.
Right. That one specifically says Exile, so even though the One Ring has Indestructible, you are able to use it to take care of your opponent's stuff. And
exactly.
It only costs 1 mana to cast, so Court of Calling for 1 is good enough. Normally we see Haywire Might out of the Urza Saga decks, but no Sagas in the Yawgmoth side of things, but card is still good enough to warrant playing.
Oh yeah. It's extremely efficient, one of the best answers in the whole format to the One Ring, and it's perfect for creature decks like Yawgmoth, especially with those Court of Callings.
Well, thank you for that. As Matt finishes that up, we are going to be moving back over to the match. Dillingham has presented his deck. His opponent is still shuffling, but player's about ready to go for game number 2. So I want to shout out our sponsor, Ultimate Guard. Ultimate Guard has given the Apex series a ton of swag to provide to our satellite stores. We run Apex Invitational qualifiers with regularity, and if you want to run one of those at your store and have the ability to send one of your players to the Apex Invitational, make sure to check out apexgaming.gg for more information. You can find info on all of our Apex Magic weekends. You can buy singles, you can buy swag, everything Magic related at apexgaming.gg. And thanks again to Ultimate Guard for being a sponsor. Also, shout out to G Fuel Energy Formula. We're gonna run out of steam today at some point, I know, and I'm looking at G Fuel around about 6:30 at night. Not normally the best time to drink an energy drink, but when you're 8 rounds of Swiss, you got to do what you got to do. So shout out to G Fuel Energy for keeping us energized. And lastly, thanks to Wings, etc., the place where I'm going to be eating dinner tonight, eating my fill of
can't wait
boneless wings, and it's going to be good. Thank you so much for our sponsors. Appreciate y'all. Players here are about ready for game number 2.
You see a mulligan for Kyler, and it looks like Dylan has kept the 7 and is very excited to see this mulligan from his opponent.
Now, when you're in a bad matchup playing Golgari Yawgmoth against this Esper control deck, I think one of the easiest ways to win is to steal games from, someone mulliganing or low resource. And Dillingham obviously hamming it up a little bit, but it's he's on camera. You gotta put a little spice on there. If he just sits there stoic and unfazed or whatever, maybe that means he's a little human after all, huh?
It's good for the game. It's a
I like the MF Doom shirt. Rip to legend.
Shirt and hat.
Nice.
Got the fit going on.
Yeah, MF Doom did a whole spot on Adult Swim back in the mid 2000s. Made like some little mini music videos and stuff. The animated mouse character was just so cool.
Before my time.
Yeah, you're a wee baby.
That's true.
I'm an old man. All right.
Is this 6-card hand going to be good enough for Kyler?
Looks like he's figuring out what to put back.
Yeah.
Looks like he's thumbing a prismatic ending. We'll see what he goes with.
It was really interesting after the London Mulligan. Of course, this had a huge effect on Magic. But one of the cool things is a handful of podcasts that would regularly do Keeper Mole decisions. After the London Mulligan, they became not Keeper Mole, but what do you put on the bottom with this hand? It's a great decision point that got added to Magic.
That's cool. No, I like that. I like that a lot. All right. We are
Slow
underway.
starts.
No one draft from Dillingham. You hate to see it. 2 blooming marches. We got a wall of roots. Is it going to get bounced 6 times or is it going to get killed? We'll see. Kyler Field's going to go ahead and fetch. Down to 19. See if he wants to end of turn play a removal spell or just get one of the triumphs to turn on Leyline Binding.
Right. Probably trying to get our domain mana base online.
All right. Who do you like in this matchup? Let's say it's game 1 still. You don't know, how the games are going to play out necessarily. But who do you favor in this matchup? Who do you think is going to be winning the match?
Depending on the removal suite, I expect the Esper deck to have a great suite of answers to the Yawgmoth deck. The Yawgmoth by itself, in itself, is a powerful card advantage engine as long as you have as much as possible going on around it to keep the fuel going. But we saw last game, there was a bit of mana screw from Dylan's side, but Kyler was able to keep everything under control and really not allow Dylan to get his feet under him.
Yeah, critical mass is what we call it when you just need a bunch of game objects all working together in tandem, and what the cards each say themselves is usually irrelevant. You just need game objects so that the payoff, the Yawgmoth, actually can do something. But here, Kyler Field's going to take away the food from Dylan Ham and eat that wall of roots with a prismatic ending. We're going to see if Dylan Ham can recoup. Something like Grist would be great here, but we just have Delighted Halfling and a pass.
Ooh. And we can be pretty confident that was drawn later in the game because it did not come down on turn 1.
Or turn 2 off the wall of roots.
That's true.
So maybe Dylan Ham, handful of Yawgmoth and Court of Calling, because I think Grist would have come down this turn. Hand must be pretty lackluster. Kyler Fields, though, land number 3 and pass back. Could have Bowmaster. Bowmaster's one I forgot about. It has flash, so it can be useful here. And,
that's true.
Getting Ham some pressure down as well as some bodies so that he could play something like Court of Calling for 3 next turn and get Grist.
This is also a fairly threatening Delighted Halfling a lot of the time against a control matchup, allowing you to get down a Yawgmoth through a counterspell. But Kyler really just relying on those mana leaks and then a bunch of removal spells. So he might be in good shape despite this Halfling sticking.
All right, we're going to fetch Ragran Triumph. And apologies.
Some brief technical difficulties here. So we try to get our stream back online.
There we go. Sorry about that. All right, so Bowmasters does come down, and that's going to deal damage and make a token. Binding is going after the Delighted Halfling. We're back Dylan Ham's way.
Right, so it looks like Kyler actually had a thought about it for a while and then decided the Halfling did not need to stick around anyway. But
maybe that means he has mana leak in hand, though.
Could be. And then Dylan immediately seizes that opportunity to resolve the Bowmasters.
All right, we're going to play Colony Garden. We're going to make a token. Attacking for 2. Looks like I see Veil of Summer in hand, maybe another Bowmasters. So we have some punishes for the draws off of One Ring and Jace the Mind Sculptor. We have a reset of a little bit of pressure after something like Supreme Verdict. Only have... Okay, here's the One Ring.
Kyler, not too worried about what his opponent has going on right now. Wants to get this draw engine online. The Bowmasters will trigger, not be able to put the damage on Kyler himself, but will, looks like, target that Orc Army token, because as the amass resolves, so does the damage. The token will be 1 bigger by the time the damage resolves.
All right, here comes an attack. No inner turn play from Dylan Ham, so it looks like just Veil Summer, maybe some reactive stuff to protect him, but not really the spot you want to be in when your opponent is just tapping out. You want to be punishing them for tapping out.
Right.
Urborg in play for Dylan Ham, so access to as much black mana as he wants. Here it comes
Yawgmoth.
Yawgmoth, Rand position. No sacrifice, though. No need to, because we can't go infinite. And here, going back Collar Field's way, we're going to take one from the One Ring. And then we're going to draw some cards.
Yeah, Dylan's happy to just leave this rattlesnake of a Yawgmoth in play. Any action Kyler takes, Dylan can just turn that into cards at a moment's notice. We are clarifying the Orc Army token.
Okay.
Looks like there might be some confusion about the fact that the ability targeted the Orc Army, but Dylan will get to keep that token.
Dylan's super heads-up player. You know, he knows how
Right.
state-based actions work and stuff like that. Our spotter here, I think, just confirming the size and making sure everything's on the level, which is fine. Color Fields on your right, untapped. Tons of resources at his disposal. Can activate the One Ring and draw 2, but that will grow the Orc Army by 2, so he's going to need to find some way to clear. Needs Supreme Verdict, needs removal spells, needs some way to do anything. Needs to be interactive here.
Right. This is the exact spot you're looking for a Supreme Verdict.
He clearly doesn't have it, right? It
That's
would
true.
be a very easy cast and then draw 2. Very easy turn. So now we have a hard turn.
Very interested to see exactly what removal Kyler has in hand. Doesn't look super easy to deploy, but we're going to start out with a Leyline Binding for just 1 mana.
Okay, that's probably going to take care of the Yawgmoth, but we could go after the Bowmaster. All right, Bowmaster.
Interesting.
Down. We're going to sack it in response and draw a card.
And now we can draw cards with Abandon. I do believe I saw a flash of that Supreme Verdict. Does Kyler have the land or just a removal spell for the Yawgmoth to stave off this pressure?
Well, must have drawn the Verdict off of the draw 2 from the ring, or
Right.
else that would have been a much easier play there. But could still go ahead and fire it off to clean up the board. If not, looking at a big attack next turn. Could just follow it up with a backup copy of the One Ring to make sure that you know, you're not getting attacked for a bunch next turn, but maybe is a little preemptive.
That's really kind of the dream scenario, right? Is chaining a couple rings into each other, just letting your opponent develop without actually pressuring your life total, and then following that up with a Supreme Verdict to reset everything with a full grip.
Right.
Let's see what Kyler's able to deploy.
Okay.
Unmoored Ego.
Ooh, what are you gonna name? Maybe name's
Yeah.
Grist. Now that the Yawgmoth's already in play, it's interesting. What will you name?
See if we can get that information, or it might just
Well, we'll know once the cards start getting pulled out, but
right.
unless it misses.
That's true.
What you got? Oh, a Sheoldred in hand. That one's pretty scary. That can do some kind of combo kills with the Yawgmoth and a couple other creatures in play. Looks like we're gonna
Orcish
go and take
Bowmasters.
Bowmasters from him. Interesting. I
Kyler
gotta
is
say,
really looking to depend on this One Ring to pull the game out, and is probably concerned that no matter what Dylan has in hand, he can draw towards either a Bowmasters or a Chord for a Bowmasters and really punish this ring.
well, you know what? I'm pretty sure that the game's over because Kyler doesn't have Solitude in hand, is tapped out, and looks like Dillingham next turn is going to go big attack and then do some Yawgmoth tricks, deal some damage. Although I guess maybe Kyler has one more turn, but the Yawgmoth or the Sheoldred does look really strong in the face of the One Ring, right?
Right, that's exactly what you're not looking for. Kyler casts this Unmoored Ego, names Orcish Bowmasters, hoping to free up the One Ring, and then sees basically another Bowmasters, but possibly worse than the Shoulder of the Apocalypse.
All right, here's a big attack for 4. Going to put Kyler down to 8. Sheoldred can come down and be scary, but we know Kyler has Supreme Verdict that he drew off of the draw 2 last turn. We'll
Right.
see if Ham can sniff it out or wants to just go for it to punish the One Ring draws.
That is a Blood Artist. So Dylan does not have the full combo with the second Undying creature, but can certainly dig towards it and may be able to just take Kyler down with the damage from the ring and the Blood Artist, and Kyler will scoop it up.
Well, it was going to take 2 from the One Ring and then a bunch of damage from the Blood Artist, so I think that was basically game.
Right.
Yeah, all right. Players here are going to be shuffling up here for game number 3. And that game, we got to see the Yawgmoth deck do a little something, something, hit its land drops and the wall of roosting and didn't get bounced 3 times. And
Right.
when that happens, the deck actually works.
And we saw an interesting dynamic here. So Dylan has the Veil of Summers from the sideboard. We saw one in the hand there, so at least one, probably both have been brought in. Um, Kyler is playing an Esper control deck that only has those 4 counter spells and then a couple black removal spells, but mostly the removal is white. And there's the Supreme Verdicts. So the Veil of Summers, sometimes good. They at least always draw a card. But we also saw Dylan tapped out of the Veil of Summer, and then was not able to counter the Unmoored Ego.
Yeah.
So, Dylan, post sideboard, you're going to be reevaluating. Do I still want these Veil of Summers? Seeing the Ego will definitely influence him to try to snag one of those.
Yeah, and
in
without
game
knowing
three.
the deck list, he probably has assumed counter spells are in there. Maybe,
Absolutely.
maybe some fatal pushes, stuff
Right.
like that. So, I will say that Veil of Summer, it got banned in Pioneer for just being obnoxious, right?
Right.
And in Modern, it's still pretty good, but it got a lot worse when they made Unholy Heat and Leyline Binding. Black,
Right.
Black's identity for a long time, just removal. That was the identity. Removal spells, and then your creatures were kind of bad.
Right.
And over time, cards are printed in various colors, and abilities like Delirium and Domain from Leyline Binding do cost reduction. So
Right.
the other colors get access to very similar removal spells that Black normally has access to, and ultimately that just makes Veil of Summer have a lot less utility.
Right. But we do see the one of the bigger black spells in the format in Grief does get almost entirely shut down by Veil of Summer. So definitely a factor in keeping Veil in these players' sideboards.
All right, players are shuffling up here for game number 3. 1-1. We're gonna have the Esper control player on your right. They're gonna be on the play, and we're gonna take a look at openers. This weekend we're playing for $5,000 in this Modern Open. We have a prize breakdown, I believe, somewhere maybe. All right, so just go over prizes that we're going to be playing for. Our top 16 is going to get $100 cash. 5th through 8th each get $250 cash. 3rd and 4th, 500 bones. That's a big payday. 2nd place, $700. And then 1st place, up top, $1,500 cash money. That's what we're giving away today. But we have more stuff going on tomorrow and a full slate of prize or side events that pay out prize wall tickets and a cool prize wall full of awesome stuff.
All right. I believe I saw a Theros foil commons sheet. Got a
Oh yeah, you were telling me about that one a little bit.
yeah, some of my favorite basic lands and the original Grey Merchant of Asphodel art on that sheet. It's pretty exciting for me. I'm interested. All right. Looks like our players have kept their hands. We've got just a tapped Overgrown Tomb for Dylan, and Kyler is fetching away, trying to figure out which triome will be best here.
Now, it is Esper control. Are there any things in his deck like Thoughtseize that we have to worry about? I assume not, but
No.
that's not the type of card you usually play alongside Leyline Binding. But
Right.
it seems like the black is mostly just for some sideboard cards and then the Orcish Bowmasters.
The Orcish Bowmasters and also Shoulder the Apocalypse in the main deck. We did
Cool,
have 3
cool.
copies.
That card very, very exciting with the One Ring, and that is how we saw Kyler Fields take down game number 1. He was
Right.
so far advantaged, but the Shieldred was the thing that literally did the killing.
Right. And the 3rd black card in the main deck, another Lord of the Rings card that we haven't seen yet today in Sauron's Ransom.
Love that card. Basically, Factor Fiction, but costs 1 less mana. It's 2 different colors. Really interesting dynamic that it creates.
Right.
Kyler Field's going to go ahead and fetch. Dillingham, no turn 2 play, but to me that just means we're guaranteed to play an Orcish Bowmasters.
Right.
It's funny, Bowmaster is one of those cards that when you play against another person that has the same card in their deck, whoever plays it second is the one that's
Right.
advantaged. And so you don't really want to play Bowmaster on a dry board. The fact that he's not playing a 2-drop to me means that he can only play the Bowmaster, and he's almost certainly going to play the Bowmaster just to get some pressure
Right.
down and build some board presence. All right, back Kyler's way, fetches his 2nd land. It's another Triumph. And now we got Domain mostly unlocked. We'll see if he wants to play Teferi Time Raveler or some other 3-drop this turn.
Bowmasters, like you're saying, does not line up amazingly against the second Bowmasters, but it does line up very well against a Teferi Time Raveler. Putting multiple pieces into play, if that Teferi wants to minus, it will most likely be dying on the following turn.
All right, so life totals we're going to have Dillingham at 20. Collar's going to be down to 17. Fetch +1 from the Bowmaster. Teferi enters with 4. Loyalty can tick down and bounce Bowmaster. Tick down and bounce the Orc, but it would just replace itself immediately. Or you can tick up, which is what he did. That's a very common line against the Bowmasters. And here we go. Grist the Hunger Tide. We're going to sacrifice something to deal damage, but we're missing out on attack first. We can attack first. Come on now. Slow down.
Great trade for Dylan. Got this Planeswalker established. Traded that Orc for an entire Planeswalker that never got to draw a card. And
right.
it's going to be... Kylo's going to need a few tools to catch back up here, because obviously the Grist dodging Supreme Verdict, but still going to start pumping out 1/1s to put some pressure on.
Yeah, I mean, Grist's one of like the all-stars of the Yawgmoth deck. It's called Golgari Yawgmoth, but if I'm being honest, if I'm playing against the on the other side of the table, Grist is the card that I'm most scared of basically at all times. The
Right.
token generation is fuel for Court of Calling as well as Yawgmoth. The minus just lets you check large monsters or planeswalkers from the opposing side, and the fact that you can grab it off of Court of Calling is just so broken.
Right.
Here's an Orcish Bowmaster from Collar Fields, and we're gonna go after that Grist. We're gonna make an Orcish army token. We're gonna blow it up. Now we got Bowmaster on Bowmaster action. Hot.
Right. This is some really interesting resource swings here. Kyler's Bowmaster is almost as effective as Dylan's, which provided some fodder for the Grist. Is now gonna hold down the ground, take care of that Grist. Now we're gonna wait to see who draws the next Bowmasters to take care of their opponents.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna deploy a Delighted Halfling in a Wall of Roots. We'll see if Ham wants to Court of Calling or something here during the end step. We see a Mana Leak peeking out of Collar Fields' hand. Might want to go for a Mana Leak on the Wall of Roots because the Delighted Halfling threatens to have it not do anything for the rest of the game. And
Right.
we are.
And also the the downside of the Mana Leak is we're fast approaching the part of the game where the Mana Leak maybe misses the important spells altogether, even if they're not under the Delighted Halfling.
Right. That is the downside of playing Mana Leak over Counterspell, but
Right.
Kyler here has to fetch with the Marsh Flats and is going to get a basic land, going to get Swamp, and that plus the Ketria Triumph. You know, you don't see Ketria Triumph plus Swamp together too often in Modern, huh?
I believe that's Raugrin. We have Raugrin and
What'd I say?
Indatha in play. You said Ketria, which would be
Sorry.
Teamer.
I actually meant Rogren. I don't know why I said the wrong one. Whatever. Not my
Right.
fault. Not my fault. They're all the same
Yeah.
paper scraps.
All right. Mana Leak takes down the Wall Roots, and let's see what Kyler has going on. Looks like a Shieldred and a Prismatic Ending.
Yeah, and a couple of lands. So honestly, not that scary if you're Dillingham. Shieldred is a strong Magic the Gathering card in most instances, and when paired with a bunch of card draw, you gain a bunch of life, or be very punishing against an opponent trying to card draw. But with Bowmaster in play from both sides, drawing a bunch of extra cards is just like a non-starter anyway.
Right. Now, Kyler, not a whole lot else to do. Is going to try to invest as much mana as possible into the board, play the Shieldred. The scare card for Kyler now is another copy of Grist. Would be devastating.
Yeah, Grist to knock off Shieldred and provide another Planeswalker for support to make more tokens. Court of Calling goes and gets Grist. Something like Yawgmoth is okay, but you get mega punished by the Bowmaster and the Shieldred, so
Right.
it's just tough. All right, I do see a Court of Calling, so it looks like we will likely be seeing another Grist this turn. Draws. Takes 2 from the Shieldred down to 17. Wooded Foothills is the land for the turn. Let's see how he wants to sequence, but you have to imagine Grist is in the back of his mind.
Right. That's one of the really exciting parts about playing this Yawgmoth deck is just being able to have these wildly powerful cards on hand whenever you want. Looks like we're going to fetch and probably use all of our mana, leave some creatures untapped for this Court of Calling.
All right, fetching a basic forest, so that's going to protect the life total a little bit. Now, when you get the Grist, which one are you sacrificing? Because if no matter what happens, you're going to end up losing your Grist if you do this main phase, right? Because you have to convoke 1, and you have to sack 1, and then you have a 1 loyalty grist versus 2/1/1 attackers.
Right. It's the Bowmasters. Well, the Shouldred's dying, so that's no longer a factor. But yeah, you're pretty interested in keeping the Bowmasters in play, but leaving a 1/2 blocker back might be more important to try to at least uh, take a creature off the battlefield. If Kyler wants to attack down this Grist, he would have to trade an entire Bowmasters to do it.
Yeah, it looks like that is going to be what we go for. Dillingham going to sack his Bowmaster to trade off for the Shieldred and with the Grist. And now Kyler going to go back his way, and he's going to need a removal spell to clear this Halfling if he doesn't want to lose the Bowmaster. Good news for him, though, is that no matter what happens, the Grist is checked if he wants.
Right.
It's always a scary thing to let untap. Here we go. Draw for turn as Kyler Fields thumbs a Prismatic Ending. Can't see what the draw was.
Can't tell if there's some whiteboarded cards or it's just the flashing of the sleeves, but something interesting going on in Kyler's hand. 3 mana, Teferi Time Raveler.
Ooh, that's a nice one. Just going to draw a card, bounce the Halfling, let him keep the Prismatic Ending for a potential problematic creature later on, like Geist or something.
Right.
We're going to send 1 at the Grist and 1, I guess, face. I would have loved to have seen just Bowmaster go at the Grist and hold back the Orc army to block in case of Geist or something similar. You don't want your Teferi to get knocked off here for cheap or free.
Right.
Halfling comes back down.
Taking a look at the deck list, actually, I'm not sure how.
Another Grist.
Oh no, we do have 3 strangling. Another Grist.
Yeah.
Keep them coming.
And this one's going to tick up. We're going to make a token. And now Ham, with that nice draw of the Grist, we're going to make that insect. Do we have another defender to play? Let's see. Alright, going to go into turn.
Ooh.
Pass the other way. Kyler Fields draws Bowmaster for the last turn, and that's going to be devastating for Dylan Ham. This is going to allow the Grist to be under significant pressure and ultimately get knocked off thanks to this Prismatic Ending.
Right. These players just coming right back at each other with haymakers. You think you have the perfect answer, and then your opponent has the perfect answer to your perfect answer.
We call that a back and forth.
Love it.
Ending on the Grists. Okay. Guess we want to attack with the 2/2 and hold back the 2 Bowmasters.
Sure.
Would have loved to have just take off the Halfling and just spend the turn killing the Grist with attacks. That way you get to clear both. But,
yeah, because now this Halfling gets to threaten your Teferi, and you have some possibly difficult decisions to make. But I think it's likely we just see 1 loyalty come off the Teferi here.
yeah, I don't mind a double block, but I could see either effect happening, and both players just fine with either outcome. Here's a Bowmaster, and that's going to be used to finish off the Teferi maybe, but no, we're going to go after a Bowmaster. So good thing you didn't double block. You would have got blown out a little bit.
Well,
Although,
no.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So that's it's possible that's a misstep on Dylan's part. If Kyler had decided to if Kyler had decided to double block, Dylan wouldn't be able to Bowmaster the other Bowmaster in combat because of the Teferi.
Yeah.
But Kyler also on that turn, nope, never mind, did not have the Prismatic Ending. We used it.
Yep. All right, we did draw another one, though. So we got Prismatic Ending, and we got Shieldred at the ready. Here comes
All right.
the Praetor.
Dylan, you're being put to the Grist test yet again.
Yeah. Grist
Can we
4?
find the 4th one?
Grist 4? Court Calling? Has Besage in hand. Finds Colony Garden, not the best.
Not quite.
And here we go. We're going to go back Kyler Fields' way. A dominating board position. Shieldred strong. Teferi looming. And Bowmaster preventing some card draw from Ham's side of things. Teferi ticks up. Means we can Prismatic Ending at instant speed.
Right.
Even for X equals 4 also to take care of a Yawgmoth should it
Right.
come down.
It's a great side benefit of the domain mana base that you want to put together for Leyline Binding is your Prismatic Endings can just do really whatever they want.
All right, Dylan Ham going to go to 7 from the Shieldred trigger. Draws another brick. Passes the turn back. Teferi locks down instant, so we know no Court Calling withdrawn for the turn. Back Kyler Fields his way. We're going to tick up the Teferi to 4. We're going to make sure that one doesn't ever hit the bench. We're going to draw.
Dylan's starting to protect his life total.
Another chump block here. Going to go to 5. Here's Wall of Roots. This deck full of mana creatures and do-nothings, but looking for Yawgmoth, looking for some way to get the Shieldred off the table, maybe another Grist. We've already gone through 3.
The outs are getting slimmer and slimmer for Dylan. This Shieldred, both in combat and in the draw step, it's pressuring his life total. Not a whole lot else to work with.
All right, let's see if Kyler can close it out. Has Prismatic Ending, has Otawara. Very close, actually, just bouncing enough creatures to attack for the win.
Right, especially with this Teferi.
Yeah, actually, I guess with Teferi, it is lethal because the Bowmaster can't be flashed back in. So,
Right.
okay, what you got here?
See if Kyler takes that line or just says, you know what? Looks like, oh, Wall of Roots off the table.
Yeah, we're going to draw a card. Or, I guess you're forced to draw the card, huh?
Right.
Okay, maybe a big misstep. Should have gone for the Prismatic Ending on the Bowmaster first, perhaps, to prevent this thing from happening.
I definitely forgot that the first time I went to bounce an Orc Army token.
Oh, yeah.
I said, sure,
Just
trigger?
a massive Phil's Badman.
Yeah.
My buddy Phil S. Badman. All right, here comes another chump block. Orc Army getting some work done. And then we're going to double block the other Orc Army.
Interesting.
And Kyler here can't play the Prismatic at instant speed because the Teferi went down instead of up.
Urborg check? No Urborg.
All right, 4 mana. We're going to do an Otawara bounce on Delighted Halfling would be my guess.
It's also possible that it looks like Kyler overpaid for the Otawara. Does have that legendary Shieldred in play,
True.
but unlikely to be impactful in this game.
All right, draws for turn down to 3. What you got? Is that Quarter Calling for Grist, but no fodder left. It's a Yawgmoth. And we got a Wall of Roots. And we also got the Delighted Halfling that we can play as well. Okay. Back Collar's way.
Interestingly, leaving up that mana, I wonder if there is a Court of Calling in hand.
Maybe drawn for the turn.
But we would be expecting to see that 4th Grist if it's still in the deck.
All right,
Kyler,
fetch.
Kyler just trying to figure out the best way to get this game over with.
Fetch Godless Shrine, end of turn. Gonna untap. Shieldred. Keeping that life total really high. Every time he draws a card, +2 life. Great alongside the One Ring. Excellent alongside Jason Mind Sculptor as well. Both in Kyler Fields' Esper control deck. We've watched it do some really cool stuff so far. Here's Prismatic Ending on the Yawgmoth, and Dillingham packs it in.
That'll
Kyler
do
Fields
it.
going to defeat Dillingham, one of our previous champions here on the Apex Gaming Series. And, you know, a well-played game from both sides, but ultimately Dillingham just did not draw enough powerful cards. Flooded out a bit. Both players flooding out quite a bit.
Right.
But Orcish Bowmaster is really the whole story of that game. And Kyler Fields now 2-0.